Hello, it's John Heaton, and we're inside today because it's pretty bad weather outside. And although the willow turns us back on inclement weather, we've given in and come inside. And obviously, there are advantages. There's no wind, there's no planes. So today, I'm going to review this album, which is a live album from Simon and Garfunkel, released February 1982, and this is their concert in Central Park, recorded September the 19th, 1981. Now, Garfunkel had appeared as a guest in Paul Simon's concerts throughout the 70s occasionally, and he even combined with Paul on one track on the Still Crazy After All These Years album, My Little Town, from 75. But this was the first kind of fully fledged reunion, and I was just reading up about it before doing this video, and the two of them had pretty acrimonious rehearsals apparently, and they couldn't decide who was going to do what and how much to do together and how much solo, and it doesn't show, I must say. When I watched the concert, it looks like they're both having a ball, but apparently the backdrop to it was a lot of arguments. And then following this album, they were due to combine together on a brand new album, and that fell through halfway through, and that album ended up being Hearts and Bones, appearing in '83. So, a couple of things to say. This album is on the Geffen label, which is interesting because it's the same label that John Lennon's and Yoko Ono's Double Fantasy was released on. I think they were signed to Geffen after John died. So John had died the previous December 1980, not far from the site of this concert. And so Paul and John were pretty good friends over the years, so Paul actually wrote a tribute to John, which appears on the video for this concert, but was missed out from the album. But I'll come to that. So a couple of things to say. Chart-wise, this album got to number 6 in the US and number 6 in the UK as well. It's produced, as most Paul Simon albums are, by Paul Simon and Roy Haley, and Phil Ramone is involved. I actually noticed on Paul Simon's latest album there was a bit of a mischievous comment, because it said produced by Paul Simon and his old partner Roy Haley. I took that to be a bit of a dig at Art Garfunkel, because apparently the two are not speaking these days, which is a shame. It's always a shame to see artists falling out, and although they have been reconciled on and off over the years, currently they're not speaking to each other. So both of these artists, Simon and Garfunkel, grew up in Queens, so they're both locals, so it was an appropriate setting, Central Park. And it's very amusing. I don't know if it's all covered on the album or maybe just a lot on the video, but at the beginning Paul Simon thanks everyone, and then he says, and thank you to the people who are selling loose joints. They are giving 50% of their proceeds. And when I first heard that, I don't think I knew what a joint was, and then I found out, and is that really what he was saying? People were going around selling loose marijuana joints at the venue, which is, if that's true, that's quite amusing. And then Garfunkel's first comment when he comes to the microphone is, I knew that it would be somewhat crowded, but we seem to have filled the place, which is great. And as I say, they're in good humour. They've got a great band behind them on this album, including such talents as Stevie Gadd on drums, Richard T on keyboards, and who else is worth mentioning? Good set of guitarists, Pete Carr, Anthony Jackson on bass. So some of those people played on the One Trick Pony album from Paul Simon from the previous year, 1980. Art Garfunkel contributes a song from his Scissors Cut upcoming album, A Heart in New York. Looking down on Central Park when he sings that line, huge applause. So I might as well just go through the tracks. I mean, they're all chestnuts, of course. They've taken the best of Simon and Garfunkel's career and the very best of the solo careers, or Paul Simon's solo career anyway. Opens with Mrs. Robinson, just a joyous version. Homeward Bound brings tears to the eye, and then America, another very moving performance. Me and Julio down by the schoolyard, superb version from Paul Simon's first solo album, 1972. Good version of Scarborough Fair from '66, which reminds me, there's an amusing video, I think Steve Ricks did it, where he's taking the Mickey out of Art Garfunkel's hair. So he's got this huge bouffant Garfunkel hair, and instead of Scarborough Fair, the first line he sings is, "Are you going to laugh at my hair?" So check that video out, it's very amusing. And then side 2 opens with April Come She Will, another chestnut from '65. Wake Up Little Susie is a cover song, done well. Still Crazy is more or less done solo by Paul Simon, his solo song from '75. American Tune. This was a song which Garfunkel was pleased to sing with Paul Simon, because it's a solo Paul Simon track from There Goes Ronnie Simon, but they do a really nice version. And there's a couple of tunes over the years where one thinks it would have been nice as a Simon and Garfunkel song, and I think this is one of them actually, although the solo version is glorious on the album. Late in the Evening follows, brilliant version, brilliant band, and this was the lead-off track from One Trick Pony, and a really good song to do in concert. And then side 3 opens with Slip Sliding Away, which is another, probably the biggest example in my opinion of a song which would have benefited from having been a Simon and Garfunkel song, because they do a brilliant version. They slow down the tempo a bit, they make it more rhythmic, more circular arrangement, and really suits the duo's harmonies. Brilliant. And then Art Garfunkel has his solo spot at Heart in New York, I talked about earlier. And then they do a version of Kodachrome, which I have to say is not as good as There Goes Rhyming Simon version. It's okay, but it doesn't quite come off, unfortunately. Maybe it's going to be hard to match the album version. Bridge Over Troubled Water, brilliantly sung by Art Garfunkel. I've heard Paul Simon say over the years, you know, this is my song and I should have sung it, and you know, Art Garfunkel got all the recognition for it, etc., etc. Well, it's a great song, Paul, and I think most of the public who know anything about music know that you wrote the song, and also most of them know that Art Garfunkel did a brilliant job singing it. And I've heard Paul Simon try to sing it on the '74 Live Rhymin' live album, and it's not a patch. So, you know, I don't really understand the acrimony surrounding that. But anyway, it's a great version, great song, great solo spot for Art Garfunkel with Richard T on piano. 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, brilliant song from '75, brilliantly done here. The Boxer, great, brilliant harmonies. Old Friends from '68, and then Feeling Groovy and The Sounds of Silence. I mean, very strong close to the album. Forgot to mention the track that Paul Simon did, which was a tribute to John Lennon, the late great Johnny Ace, which during the performance of which someone tried to rush onto the stage, and it was a bit unnerving because this was like no more than 9 months after John Lennon had been killed, a mile or so from where this concert was taking place. So that kind of ruined the premiere of that new song, and that song did not make the album, although it can be seen on the video. So, very nice booklet here with all the words and nice pictures, and they're all in good spirits and smiling on this particular occasion. So this is an album I come back to pretty often. Love it to bits, and thank you for watching. See you next time.